Good evening. Welcome to Musicview on WNYU FM. I'm Tim Sommer, and tonight we're here with Jello Biafra. Jello, who in the Dead Kennedys isn't here right now?
Well, if you look around the room, you'll find that I'm the only one here. Now for an intelligent question.
Well, who isn't here? I mean, can you just say who the band members are that aren't here?
This is okay. Let's see. Now I forgot all our band members' names. East Bay Ray, our guitarist, is not here. Klaus Fluoride, the bass player, is not here. D.H. Peligro, the drummer, is not here. So you're stuck with me.
Now, as veterans of the American punk scene, having been around about 4 or 5 years or so...
Less than 4, actually. Pretty close, but...
Well, it must be pretty close to 4, right? Okay. As being around since around 78 or so. Do you think maybe you could clear up sort of the difference, or how the difference came to be defined between hardcore and punk, and how the Kennedys fit into all that?
Well, hardcore was just a name change to differentiate the true garage bands from meaningless stuff like the Plasmatics or the Anti-Nowhere League or Antiposti, who are more of your prototype punk bands, if you will. Like in the past, like one thing that's been really beautiful about the whole scene from the beginning is every time one generation of bands starts to slack off and wimp out and start to ride on their reputation, there's a new generation of kids waiting to overthrow them. And I guess hardcore started coming in first with Black Flag and some of the early Orange County bands, and then when some of the LA bands began to run out of steam, right, as Black Flag was starting to tour the country and things, and people were starting to catch on nationwide, then the DC bands started getting some notice, and they had taken very fast hardcore punk a few steps further into the extreme, and it was born all over again.
Don't you think there was a point, though, when, say, around the time of your first Uber Alles single, and around the time, say, of Black Flag's first Nervous Breakdown, when you or Black Flag were punk bands rather than hardcore bands?
Well, I would say so, yeah. We sure weren't pop or new romantic bands or anything, so we were never ashamed of being called punks, especially when we considered what else we could be called instead.
Yeah. But today, how do you see yourselves?
I'd like to describe us as disease music for a long time, because we try to take either punk or hardcore, what you want to call it, but take it to its experimental extremes without losing the hardcore energy. One thing that's really sad is that, especially in England, there's been this huge split between the punks and the experimentalists, so you either have totally boring, unbearable, wimpy post-punk bands like New Order, who go around desecrating Joy Division's good name with their lousy imitations, or you have a lot of the new younger punk bands who are getting most of the attention over there are people who grew up listening to nothing but punk rock records, so they don't have any other musical influences to draw on, and they keep repeating themselves. So my support is leaning more now towards the bands who are willing to take the hardcore energy but take it into new areas and new extremes, and most of that is happening in America right now with people like Husker Du and Autistic Behavior. MDC has taken DC, or In God We Trust style thrash, and brought it to new levels of brutality. Everybody should watch out for the Millions of Dead Cops album. It's very important.
And in Britain, is there anyone?
The Birthday Party, who are actually Australians, still have like authentic trash appeal, which is very hard to come by over there. And there's a hardcore band, if you will, called the Rudimentary Peni, who just put out an EP on the Crass label, and they also have an earlier EP that's totally amazing, kind of a cross between Husker Du, the Germs, and the Feeders or something. It's very hard in England to find a band that's really twisted, unlike in America, but those guys are definitely twisted.
What do you think of Flux?
I like them quite a bit. I learn a lot from them. You know, their EP had a lot of information on it. They were willing to share knowledge with people without being afraid of being labeled too preachy by people who want to use punk or hardcore as a substitute for disco. if you know what I mean. The people who come to shows to do nothing but either thrash or dive off the stage, which is fine and fun, but if that's all it means to someone, then that's no different than going to a disco.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say, though, that a lot of American bands, along with a lot of British bands, have degenerated to a certain level where they're into nothing but imitative things?
We have seen the dawning of the hardcore bar band in this country, that's for damn sure. Although I hesitate to really come down too hard on a lot of them, because a lot of them have never been in a band before, and they're just starting out, and you got to start somewhere. And I like the fact that more and more people are forming bands, because that means more and more talent is going to be doing something interesting. So I hesitate to put in my 2 cents worth to pull the rug out of somebody too early, because they might eventually turn interesting if they decide they want to be interesting rather than just show off to their friends. I think a lot of the bands that really mean what they're saying and really have some guts and some soul are the ones coming from the smaller towns or the cities that haven't had a scene before, because they're the ones who really have to take a chance and screw with the norm in order to be heard, rather than areas like San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York, where hardcore has almost become a normal accepted thing among some people, and there's a normal accepted way to do it.
Let's hear something right now from the Dead Kennedys. I think the first thing we should hear maybe is the track off of the Wargasm album. Is that okay? Kinky Sex?
Do you want any explanation of that song at all, or do you want it after we play it?
Why don't we explain after we play it? Okay then, the Dead Kennedys on WNYU Musicview with Kinky Sex Makes the World Go Round. That was Kinky Sex Makes the World Go Round. That's from the Dead Kennedys. It's off the Wargasm, a British compilation album. This album came out about 8 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago.
A little more than that.
Yeah. It was a British sort of
It was an anti-war concept album, which is an interesting idea. Some of the bands that were originally supposed to be on pulled off because they were fed up with how it was being run. They felt it was unreliable. But
like who?
There was some of the Crass people were thinking of doing something, and Discharge was on for a while, and now they aren't on. But nonetheless, we thought it was a good idea, and we were honored that the people involved wanted to hear from somebody outside of England and hear their views on this. Our anti-war sentiment is more widespread than just anti-nuke, because in our backyard we have the possibility of getting drafted and being sent over to Israel or El Salvador or wherever to fight to keep some oil company from not getting their tax loss money this year. Kinky Sex is actually a dub version of the pseudo-dub version of the single we have coming out called Bleed For Me. The actual song Bleed For Me is about governments that torture political prisoners with them and get their know-how and the funds to do it from America. And to a degree this kind of goes on in America in some areas as well. That was one of the things that scared me about Alexander Haig, was he was so fond of El Salvador's methods of wiping out their dissent that I figured, I hope he doesn't use it on us. I hope he doesn't have the attitude, well, we're just practicing.
And when will Bleed For Me be coming out?
It should have been out by now. Hopefully it'll be out in a week or two.
Yeah.
With life sentence on the other side.
What's going on with Alternative Tentacles?
That's a good question. What is going on with Alternative Tentacles? We're trying to get the American branch off the ground. For the moment, we're working with faulty products, although there's so many things we're hoping we can do simply because nobody else will do them. I'd rather somebody else did, but somebody's got to get this stuff out. That we're going to want to start doing things more independently, which we have not really had the time or the organization to do yet, but that's kind of our goal for the next year or so.
No,
there's so many bands coming out of just San Francisco alone. There's probably 50 or 60 relevant bands now. Everybody on the surface, it's almost like a glut. Everybody and their brother is in a band, but then again, all these bands, if they're encouraged to keep going, are going to grow and turn interesting and keep the scene alive and vital. We do have a 7 Seconds EP coming out, a skateboard thrash band from Reno, Nevada, with some very intelligent things to say. It'll have 9 songs on it. And a 12-inch by the Farts, if you remember... Because This World Stinks.
One of the brilliant records of 1981.
Yeah, wait till you hear the new one. It's quite brutal. And above all, the first thing coming out is a Maximum Rock and Roll compilation LP.
Right. Which
we tried to tie together and help a little bit unite the scenes of San Francisco, San Jose, Santa Cruz, Sacramento, Reno, Nevada, and Fresno, who all have scenes and decent bands. So as it turned out, we wound up with 47 bands on the record on a 2-record set, which on the surface it seems like we're drowning people in a lot of bands, but on the other hand it gives all these people a chance to be heard. And a lot of the tapes came in from people we'd never ever heard of after the word of the existence of the project got out, meaning it encouraged people to really get off their asses and do the projects that they'd been wanting to do but hadn't gotten around to.
Right. Let's hear another song right now from the Dead Kennedys. Well, let's go back a couple of years and hear Man with the Dogs. Okay then, Dead Kennedys on WNYU FM, Musicview with Man with the Dogs.
Man with the Dogs is kind of about one-on-one mental terrorism, which to this day is one of my favorite things to do. He was the person who kind of first alerted me to how effective it can be, because he bugged the living daylights out of me. He would follow me and some other people I knew around. We'd encounter him on the street. We had this real wicked, weird smile on his face and totally demonic, acid-damaged eyes, and these 2 dogs just pick out a person at random and follow them for blocks with this unbroken stare with this weird smile and everything. And used to really bother me. I go, God, this guy's really bugs me. Yeah, I've heard of him too. Yeah, I know him too. Turned out a lot of people knew exactly who we were talking about. And then only later it dawned on me that Man with the Dogsing people was a very fun and effective thing to do, to remind them that all is not well or placid in a land of cover-ups.
Yeah. Let's talk a little about a problem that you had at the show you did just recently in Staten Island, which is just the total glut of people on stage. Does this happen a lot?
It hasn't always happened like that. Generally, the people running the stage know a little bit more of how to handle it. Namely, you get some people working crew on stage, the kids know, to get them to like dive off and things, rather than just get up there and then stand around like a dolt. There's nothing wrong with getting up on stage if you want to dive off, but if you get up there and then just stand there and act stupid, then what's the point?
You have a great deal of respect for your audience, so I imagine you would find it very difficult to get mad at them, but it seemed that
I get mad at people if it's obvious somebody's come to the show solely to try and sabotage the band. They're dealt with pretty severely.
Because it seemed on Friday night that, you know, what you really wanted to do was get mad, and you tried not to.
No, I was... the whole thing was kind of a sick joke in a way, but the whole...